Welcome to section 4 in phase 1. What is persona? The word person comes from the Latin word persona, which was referred to the mask worn by actors in which sound would come through. The person is the mask. The role you're playing, and all of your friends, relations, and teachers are busy telling you who you are and what your role in life is. Alan Watts. Think of it this way. In olden times, we would have plays that were put on, and they would have a list of the dramatis personas, because one actor would play multiple roles. And then they would put a mask on to differentiate which role they were playing. So think of it like this. Tom Cruise would get on stage, but this time he had to play the pilot. So he'd put on a mask that looked like a pilot. The next one, he'd jump off stage and he had to play another character, which was maybe Interview with a Vampire Tom Cruise, and he'd put it on. And then he'd jump off, and then another mask would come on, and he'd play the maid. And then another mask would jump on, and he'd come off, and he'd put on, maybe he was a race car driver. Same person, different masks. That, in essence, is what personas are. They're masks that we've created. So the question is, why did we create them? And we're going to get into that. We're going to get into why we did all of that. But in this section, we're going to talk about the power of personas. What are personas? How do we access each persona? Discovering our first personas, why we name them, the thing that gets me the most trouble when I'm on stage, when I attack what, how, and why. We're going to go over that. I always get in trouble when I do this at first. I love attacking it. It's fun. Everyone's converted at the end. Always a fan, but get in trouble with this one. And then uncovering your truths. There's going to be some things in here with some questions that we ask that are going to challenge you. They're really going to find out some of the core stuff. And we're going to get into this because we need to know what our foundation really is. We're leaving the foundation of the course and we're going into the foundation of you. So with that said, what are personas? Well, we started talking about this. We talked that they are masks and what their purpose is. Masks have been built to guard against pain, to avoid suffering, and maybe, just maybe, if we're lucky, to access love. Growing up, we acted in a certain way and it resulted with being a reward or a punishment. Because of that, we quickly developed the ability to know if we did X, we would get punished. If we did Y, we would get rewarded. So we started using that feedback to develop it. And one of the questions I get asked all the time is, are personas the same as states? Are they the same as archetypes? Now, if you haven't read any of this, this goes back a long time, but most of the stuff of states comes out from the late 60s in something called NLP, which NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Personas are not states. They're not archetypes. Personas go back thousands of years. I am not source for this. I'm just synthesis. Now, what does that mean? Think of it like this. When I went to school, one of the classes I hated was accounting. I took the class and the guy stood up and he said, all right, welcome to accounting. One of the first things you need to learn is that assets are sometimes assets, but assets are sometimes liabilities. And sometimes liabilities are liabilities and sometimes liabilities are assets. I stood up and I said, sometimes people drop your class. And I walked out of the class. Now, I still had to take accounting. So I went to a different person at a different college, which they would apply me the credit. They were using the same source material, but this guy explained it in a way that resonated with me. His synthesis was different. So when we talk about all these things, especially about personas, this dates back to Roman time, to Greek time, to Socrates. I'm just a different synthesis of it. I didn't create any of this. This doesn't belong to me. This does, hopefully, ultimately, when you learn this stuff, you'll share it with someone else as well. Ownership isn't what's relevant to me. The only thing that matters is the results. It's the only thing I care about. So using this to leverage. Now, personas can have different states. Now, states are emotional feelings. Angry, happy, sad. Those are emotional states. In your different personas, you can be happy. You have a default persona, which is kind of how you are every day. You're kind of happy. You're kind of not happy as well. You get kind of sad. You get angry. You get good. But they're all within that same persona. It's not until we switch completely into a different persona that we have different actions. Now, that different persona, it can have different states. It can be part of different archetypes. Personas have states and archetypes. Archetypes do not have states and personas. States do not have personas. That's how it works. So it kind of sits above it. So, how do we access personas? Accessing is simple. It's a matter of breathing and thinking. So look at the picture next to us. See the lady with her hand on her chest? She's in this moment. Now, she's probably meditating and not doing personas because she's not one of my clients. So what are you going to do? But we're going to do the same thing. What I want you to do is, instead of putting your hand on your chest, stick your hand about, 8 to 10 inches away from your chest. Now, if it's 12, that's fine too, but stick it out somewhere it's comfortable. And basically kind of scan your body. Just go from the top of your head down to about your waistband. Go up and down and try and figure out where you're breathing right now. Just see how it is for now. We're about to change that. We're about to do some exercises and we're about to change that. So the first one we're going to do, roller coasters. I want you to think about this. And before I tell you mine, I want you to think about it. Imagine you're on the top of a roller coaster and you're on that very, very top and you're about to go over and you're about to be launched. Have your hands scan up and down your body. Where is your hand now compared to what it was before? When you sat there and you're about to go over that top and you're about to go down into it, where's your hand? Where are you with that? Think about it. Feel it for a second. Try and imagine what you're seeing in that roller coaster. Did you find your spot? I did. I'm in the top of my chest. I'm like right here. I'm coming towards my computer. I'm really there. So I'm breathing really high up. It's almost in my throat. I'm like, oh my God. Because remember, I'm terrified of heights. I just don't like it. But I love roller coasters. I know, it's weird. I'm a glutton for punishment. So where are you in that ballgame? I'm at the top of my chest. So what I want you to do is, if you're in the top of your chest or wherever you are, maybe in your gut, I don't know, wherever it is, put your hand there, leave your hand there. Now we're going to go to the next one. Now, where do you breathe when you're constipated? You know what I mean? When you're sitting here like, oh God, I got it. Oh. We've all had those moments. We don't want to talk about it in public, but we've all had those moments. Now we have iPads and iPhones, and our phones can sit there and play on them when we're doing it, but still, there. So if you're there, take your hand, run it up and down your body. Is it still where it was when on the roller coaster? Probably not. It's probably a little bit lower. I know for me, I'm in my gut. I'm breathing down there going, oh God. In fact, just by doing this and focusing on this, I feel like I have to use the restroom. That's the power of this. This is what we can do when we've leveraged our mind. So roller coasters, for me, was up on the top of my chest. Constipation, much lower. We're not going to get too more detailed than that because that's disgusting. So from there, where do you breathe when you have an orgasm? Now, this is very personal, and I'm not going to share mine because I don't want to hear yours. But the question is, when you're feeling this massive explosion of ecstasy, are you breathing in the same place? Think about it. My guess is you're not breathing in any of the same places, and all we did was change our thought. Soon we're going to be able to do this with personas. We're going to change our breathing. We're going to keep an eye on these. But this is how it works. So try and go back to being neutral, which means your arms are down. You're just kind of relaxed in the chair, because we're going to do a whole lot more. So now we're going to discover your first personas, and I'm going to share with you mine throughout the entire exercises. As we discover personas and as we start breaking them down, I'm actually going to share mine with you so it can kind of help us out. So the first one is when you're with your family. Now, when I'm with my family, I always think of my grandparents who are no longer with us, but I always think of them. How do I dress when I was around my grandparents? Well, I always made sure that I was shaved until I got a little bit older and I didn't care as much, but most of the time I was shaved. I also dressed well. I wanted to make sure everything was clean and I presented well because it was a matter of respect. If you've noticed, without even thinking, the way I speak has changed. If you just rewind the video back about another 30 seconds and then hear me transition, my tonality has dropped. I'm not as loud. I'm speaking a little bit lower and a little bit slower. Because in this situation with my grandparents, I spoke too fast. And they couldn't hear very well. So I consciously slowed things down. I'm also breathing lower in my body. I'm calming myself down. My breaths are slower. One word that I would describe myself as this with my family would be respectful. I was enamored by my grandparents. They're just amazing gifts of human beings. So I was always very respectful around them. I didn't talk as much. What purpose does this persona serve? What purpose does all of this do? It was to be respectful to my grandparents and to take as much time as I could with them before we lost them. How are you with your family? Take the time to write these things down. We gave you the workbooks. We gave you the things to do this with. Take the time. Pause the video if you have to. Write it down. So that's where I am with my family. Where are you with yours? From there, what about your friends? Now, my friends are a bunch of idiots. Now, I know this is going to come as a surprise to you, but men, we never really grow up beyond 12 when we're around our guys. When we're hanging around our friends, we just become 12-year-olds again. It's just the nature of the beast. Our toys might have gotten bigger. Might have gotten more expensive. We might have to shave a little bit more than we did when we were 12. Okay, a lot more. But we're just the big 12-year-olds. How do I dress? I don't care. I'm in flip-flops. I'm in like shorts. I'm in a shirt. I don't care. It's just fun and it's silly. If you've noticed again, my speech has changed, right? I'm talking higher pitched, a little bit faster, because my guy friends are used to that with me. I get to be a big old goofball. Where do I breathe? Well, I'm higher back up in my chest now. I'm processing information in the top of my chest, and I'm speaking quicker. I'm also breathing faster because I am speaking faster. One word that I describe this, goofy. It would just be goofy. When I'm around my guy friends, I'm just a hyper goofy guy. It's just the nature of the beast. We have a good time. We pick on each other. Just good guys. What purpose does it serve? To be joyful. Just to be joyful and to spend time and to connect with one another. See how different it is than it is when you're with your family? So we'll try the next one. But before we do, write down, how are you with your friends? How are they different? You should be able to see them next to each other going, oh my gosh, these are very different. How about when you go on a job interview? Now, I don't go on many job interviews. I get interviewed for TV and I get interviewed for events and those type of things. But normally what I'm doing, I'm on the other side. I'm an angel investor and I'm interviewing people. People are coming to speak. I'm working with clients. I'm taking them through an interview process, but I don't get interviewed very much. It's very rare. But for me, when I get interviewed for kind of like television and TV shows or podcasts, in that environment, if I'm at home, well, then I'm probably in my underwear. I'm being honest with you. If it's not a webcam, I'm probably hanging on my underwear or a pair of shorts or workout clothes. I'm at home. I get to dress how I want to dress. But if I'm there in front of them, I'm wearing a suit. I don't wear a tie unless someone passes away. It's one of the rare times you have me wear a tie. But I definitely dress more professional. How do I speak? I'm more direct. I'm more punctuated. And I slow things down. How do I breathe? I'm in my throat. I'm completely in my throat. I'm constantly ready to engage, and I never breathe deeply. Now, how is my breathing speed? Well, it's actually held. I hold my breath a lot when I do this. I say things, and I keep breath in my lungs so I can quickly return fire. I can quickly re-engage. One word that to describe me when I'm on an interview, tactical. I'm very tactical. I'm constantly being aware of everything they're saying to make sure I don't miss anything, that I'm providing value to them, that their audience I'm meeting the needs of their audience. I'm very focused. What purpose does this persona serve? To be in service to others. Period. That's what this person does. When I'm in an interview, this is who I am. It's very focused. It's very analytical. It's in your face. How about you? When you guys are doing this, when you're going to a job interview, is it comfortable wearing that suit and having it around your neck? That tie? How about what shoes you're wearing? Do you always wear those shoes? Are they hurting your feet? What are the things you wear? How do you speak? Are you more calculated? Are you using what we used to call 10-cent words with multiple syllables in them to make sure that you can actually connect to it? Are you constantly making sure you don't say Are you thinking about if that question was right or wrong when you answered it? How are you breathing? See how different this is than when it was with your family and your friends? Now, how about the next one? Write these things down. Don't skip this, guys. Pause the video if you have to. But here's the next one. How about on dates? If you notice, my voice just went up. I just got more hyper. How do I dress? I'm normally in jeans and a nice shirt. This is how I am when I'm dressed. How do I speak? Probably too fast. But I'm going to be me. I'm a little bit hyper and I move around a little bit. My hands move around a little bit. How do I breathe? Fluid. It's going in and out, probably mostly in my chest, but I'm connecting. Fast or slow? Oh, very fast. I'm connected. One word that describes me? Probably too hyper, a little excited. Because it's a date. This is exciting. I'm getting to meet a new person, be able to connect. Well, maybe in this situation, you're already married. You still should be going on dates. Dates should be happening every week. How are you doing when you guys connect? How was it compared to when you first got together? Is it different now? If you did what you did in the beginning of the relationship, if you did that now, how differently would your relationship be? Think about that. How have things changed? Now, what purpose does it serve, this version of me, when I'm on a date? To connect, to have a good time, to celebrate being alive, to find out if there's that energy, that fluid connection with another human being. So I'm kind of happy, kind of excited, kind of nervous. It's fun. That's not true. Dates suck. But once you connect with someone good, fun. But most dates suck. Just, that's why you meet for coffee. So with that said, are you a different person in each situation? No. You're the same person. You're just wearing a mask. You're putting on a different role. Do you act differently? 100%. 100%. Absolutely. You absolutely act differently. Now ask yourself, what reasons have you created these differences? Well, for me, with my family, it was to be respectful, right? With my friends, it was to be exciting and to be connected with them. On an interview, it was to be in service to others. And on a date, it was to have fun and be connected to another human being. Very different reasons I've created them. Because if I show up with the interview on the date, ugh. If I show up with the family version on a date, oh gosh. If I hung out with my friends as the interview version of me, they're not going to be my friends very long because this is weird. They're like, dude, what's up? Relax. This is the difference. This is how we discover our personas. Make sure you wrote those things down. Now, we have to name these things. Now, why do we name these things? Why do we do this? Imagine you have a dog, and we'll call the dog Fido. And you're at the dog park, and you're like, come here, Spot. Come here, Spot. Come here. The dog's going to look at you like, what the heck? It doesn't work. This is the same thing that we do everywhere else. We do it because it creates ownership. Every person I've ever dated in my entire life, I've always given a nickname to. I didn't do this consciously. You just call them hon or babe or sweetie or pumpkin or other weird ones that we won't talk about in this course because it's being recorded. But you probably do this with your spouses. You probably do this with the people you're connected. A buddy of mine that I adore, his name is Patrice. No one calls him Patrice. We call him P. Everybody calls him P. So when he's at work, he's Patrice. When he's hanging out with us, he's P. Another dear friend of mine, his name is James. He's an officer. We're very connected. We went to college together. Great guy. We call him Chunk. Because from the Goonies, because he's a little heavy and he's a goofball. So we call him Chunk and we goof off with that. It's just how we connect to each other. Everybody kind of gets these little nicknames. And when you get these nicknames, it's just a matter of connecting and creating ownership to that. So how about when you were a kid? Did you have nicknames? So for example, my name is Charles Joseph Schwartz, but not everybody calls me Charles. You see, Charles is the business version of me. I get very serious. I get very focused. When my parents call me Charles, I'm like, uh-oh, I did something wrong. My friends call me Charlie. My clients ultimately call me Charlie. And most of the time, you'll hear me call myself Charlie because that's who I've evolved to go away from, to get to. Because I lived my whole life as Charles for so long. And this wasn't a happy life. So I became Charlie instead. Now, Charles is still my legal name and it still connects with it, but I've switched over. The last nickname I have is Mr. Schwartz, which is weird. It freaks me out when I'm at an event and someone calls me Mr. Schwartz. I'm like, dude, I'm not that old. I'm not like 90. What are you doing? But they do it out of respect. Same time when they call me sir. I respond differently when they call me Mr. Schwartz than when they call me Charles or Charlie. Same thing for you. What are the nicknames that you had growing up? Did you have a fun one growing up? I played baseball. I had a nickname. I'm not sharing it with you. It's embarrassing. I have nicknames that my friends call me. Again, they're embarrassing. So what are yours? Write them down. How do they make you feel? Are you one person at work than when you're with your spouse? What do they call you? Different versions. We do this because we can call that version of us. So if my friends and I are hanging out and they need me to pay attention, they call me Charles. They're like, Charles, can I ask you a question? And I will turn all like, what's going on? There's a pattern break. I don't understand. That's what we're talking about here. Write it down. Go through the process. So, with that said, here's the one that gets me in all the trouble. The lies of how, what, and why. The first one we're going to attack is the lie of how. If I just knew how to do it, I would do it. Why won't someone just tell me how? Really? You have a computer that has access to the internet. You have all the hows in the planet. It's a story. It's an excuse. We have all read tons of books and tons of materials on how to get rich, on how to lose weight, on how to get the person we want to date, or whatever it is. And what happens? No, seriously, what happens? Nothing. Nothing happens because how by itself is ineffective. Giving the resources and the tools to someone when they only have the how, completely useless. The next one we get told all the time, the next lie is, do what you love and you'll never have to work again. Just do what you love and the money will follow. Right. We're going to get into this in real big detail, but this is why we have vacations. This is why baseball players who spend 162 games a year, between, what is it, 165 sometimes? They're running away from the field. This is why Michael Phelps, who won 20-something gold medals, wanted to kill himself. Because what he loved to do is not enough. Having the ability and the clarity is more important. Oh, and then my favorite lie of them all, the lie of why. We hear this all the time. People get on the radio, just find your why, connect your why. If you find your why, you're going to be able to get what you want. No, Why is not strong enough. I know why I want to have a different body. I know why I want to make $10 million a year. I know why I want to lose weight or travel or get to bed at a certain time. I know all of these whys. Doesn't mean it happens. Think about your whys. You have tons of whys of why you want to do different things. Do you always run at it full tilt? Is why enough? No. Why, what, and how are useless without who. Think of it like this. Imagine a 3-year-old sitting in a chair, and we give that 3-year-old a bunch of food. What's it going to do? It's going to make a mess. And then we walk over to that same 3-year-old. We explain exactly how to clean up the mess. We give it what it's supposed to do, and then we tell it why it's supposed to clean up the mess. What's going to happen? Nothing. It's a 3-year-old. It's not what they do. Same thing with us. As you go through the different versions of your personas and we go through this process, you're going to understand that what, how, and why are useless. The example I give more than anything else is imagine you take 3 people. You take a toddler, you take a 17-year-old boy, and a 90-year-old blind man, and you put them in the nicest hotel in the world. And they can do and have whatever they want for 4 days. But they cannot leave the hotel room and they cannot eat. That's the only contingencies. What happens when they open that door? What do they want? They want food. Why? Because they're starving. They're about to die. How are they going to do it? They're going to drive to the store and get some food. Now here's the catch. If the toddler drives the car, it's going to be a very different thing than if the old blind man drives a car versus a 16-year-old. Totally different environments, right? Who matters more than what, how, and why? The problem is we've been telling ourselves some whys. We've been having these lies that are based off our what, how, and whys. We tell ourselves things like, I'm going to the gym tomorrow, or I'm going to quit drinking. These lies hamper your ability to go and get success. They hamper your ability to move forward. And before we can identify the persona it's feeding, we must identify the lie. So again, you see the clipboard. Time to write down the lies. What are the lies of how? What are the lies you're telling yourself that say, oh, if I just knew how to do this, I would go get money. But since I don't know how, I'm never going to retire. I'm never going to create that residual income. Do the same thing with what? Same thing with why. Go through the process step by step. Figure out the lies you're telling yourself. Because the faster you know the lies, the faster you can start telling yourself that. Because each one of these lies feeds a version of you. The question is, what is it feeding? So go through the process. Pause the video. Go through this part. Now, we're going to start getting your truths. We're really going to start going through these processes, and we're going to start asking ourselves some very intense questions. The first one, everyone's done this at least a couple times, which is, what would you do if you knew you only had 1 year left to live? Just 1 year, what would you do? What would you do if a natural disaster or terrorist event struck in your town? Would you go rescue other people? Would you try to help out, or would you save your own butt? Would you try to get just you and your friends and your family out? What would you do if a friend asked you to help and you really wanted to do something out that day? My friends know, they all know, if they're moving, don't ask Charlie to help. Because I'm just going to hire a moving company for you, or just say, dude, I'm not doing that. I don't lift boxes. I like my back too much. I'm going to pay away that. I'm not doing that. They all know this. So they don't ask. I'm honest with them because I know my truth. Here's one that always gets everybody. What if you found out your favorite brand had been exploiting workers and destroying the environment? What happens if your favorite thing, the brand you love the most, and their factories had to put suicide nets around the building because their workers were committing suicide to make you your product? Because that's how bad the environment was. Sounds crazy? It's not. Samsung, iPhone, most of the devices, most of the screens, that's what they had to do at these factories. Throughout China, they had to put in these nets because the living wages and people were gone for so long, and the chemicals and everything else. Now the question is, are you going to keep your iPhone? How about your Android device? How about anything that has Samsung in it? My guess is you're probably not going to throw it out, which also means you probably weren't thinking that in the beginning, that you didn't care about the environment enough because you wanted your thing more. This is the catch. What would you do if you won the lottery? Simple question. We've all thought about this, but no, really think about it. What would you do? Who would you share it with? If someone was going to come and fight you for no reason at all, what would you do? Would you fight them? Would you hurt them? What if they're going to try and kill you? Would you engage them? Would you try and run away? What are those things? What would you do if you ran into an idea and you had an opportunity for an inside deal? In other words, you knew that XYZ company was about to release, their stock was at $10, and they knew once the release happened, it was going to go up to over $70. What would you do? Would you invest in it? Would you tell anyone else? Would you do something illegal if it benefited you? What would you do if someone on your team was bashing a teammate behind his back, but they were doing it in front of you? Would you stand up to them? Would you fight? Would you yell at them? Or would you say, you know what? No, guys, I don't approve of this, but this is your opinion, and I honor the right for you to have that opinion. I would hope that you guys would share these together in front of each other. What would you do? Would you break their confidence? If they said things in front of you, now they know they can't speak in front of you? It's not an easy answer. There is no right or wrong. Remember, there is no right or wrong. We're just trying to figure out your truths. So with that said, what did we go over this one? We went over personas. We went over how to access them, which was breathing. We then discovered some initial ones. Remember, we talked about with your family during the interview. We started to name them. We started uncovering the lies of what, how, and why. And then we reevaluated what we thought was our truths. This section was designed to kind of give you an update and an idea of what personas are, but more to shake up your foundation of what you thought were absolutes in your world and how things can be changed very quickly. So with that in mind, section 5 is next. Get a little preview. We're going to start going into developing our personas, which this is your default and your lowest. So this is what we're going to do next. But for now, do the homework, work through the exercise, fill out everything in detail, because once this starts, we're going to get rocking and rolling. As you already know, we're starting to do less in the individual events, in the individual sections, because the ideas are getting bigger. These are tougher questions now. We're raising the bar with each and every section we go through. The next one's going to be a big one. Doing default and lowest at the same time, allocate some time for this. Make sure you have a quiet space. Make sure you're ready to go. Anyway, I'll see you in the next section.